India's top female player Divya Deshmukh takes on Richard Stalmach at the second round of Prague Challengers 2025. Divya had a loss in the first round of the tournament against Ivan Salgado and will be looking to make a comeback in this round. A shake of hands and off we go. Let's see what Divya opens the game with. She starts off with pawn to d4. Divya is very aggressive as a player. She's also very creative. Stalmach plays his knight out to f6. And Richard Stalmach is a talented Czech player who has a rating of 2449. e6 on the board. Will Divya now allow the Nimzo Indian with knight c3? Yes, he does. Yes, she does. So now bishop b4 could be the Nimzo. But will Stalmach play d5? Yes, he does. D5 on the board. So it's not a Nimzo. It's a Queen's Gambit declined. And Divya takes the pawn. CD. ED. And I like this structure. Basically, there is a symmetry right from the start. White has a central majority. Black has more pawns on the queen side. She plays her bishop to f4, which is a way to develop the bishop. Bishop g5 is also possible. So she puts her bishop on f4 and now bishop d6, offering a trade of bishops. Will Divya capture it? Yes, she does. Bishop takes d6. And the speed at which Divya is playing shows that this is her prep. Queen d6, pawn to e3. And Richard now plays his bishop out to f5. Very interesting move. He develops the bishop on a good diagonal here and tells Divya, like, what's your plan? Divya plays queen f3 almost instantly, attacking the bishop here. Also the pawn is under pressure. Bishop g4 played by Stalmach. It was also possible to put your bishop on e4. And Divya plays queen g3. If you take the queen here, then after hg3 it opens up the rook and you can also start expanding in the center. So that's the reason why queen g3. Black played the move queen to b4. He's attacking the pawn on b2. How is Divya going to defend this pawn? Because she could even ignore it and just play knight e2, but she plays rook b1. It's slightly uncomfortable to put the rook here. You could even go back and attack it, but there's queen e5 check attacking the bishop, so that doesn't work. So short castle makes a lot of sense, is what Stalmach has played. And now Divya gets her bishop on this diagonal, bishop d3, preventing bishop f5. Stalmach is slightly ahead in development. He goes knight d7, although I would have preferred if he broke in the center already with c5. It seems logical when you are ahead in development. And now, is Divya bold enough to go and snatch the pawn on c7? Well, first she asks the queen to move away. So a3 played. And the queen has to decide. Maybe queen a5 is a decent move. Richard can also go back queen e7 maybe, but queen e7, I can now safely capture this pawn. So yes, queen a5 played, the best move in the position. And now the interesting part of the game. Where do you go with your knight on g1? Divya plays a knight to h3, and this is slightly unusual to develop your knight on the side of the board. c5, striking in the center here, Stalmach. I think you shouldn't be taking here. The knight will jump in and attack the bishop. So castling has been played, a logical move. And now pawn takes pawn makes sense, but c4. This is not a good move at all by Stalmach, because now what he's done is he's taken off the pressure from the center. And the issue, of course, is that Divya can just expand now in the center. The d5 pawn is weak. Doesn't look great. He takes the knight on h3. And Divya captures it with the queen. Queen takes on h3. And there is pressure here on h7. So something to worry about. So he goes g6. But it's just a very weak move, because now the king side has been weakened. And how do you start off the attack now is the big question. These are the kinds of position where Divya excels. f4, look at that, she plays this move with great style. Yes, it weakens the e3 pawn and the e4 square, but f5 is coming up, the rook will open up. King g7 played. I guess it's already time to play f5 as well, but maybe you can even go g4. Richard Stalmach in trouble. Divya is on fire here. g4 has been played. And now black under so much pressure. Rook d8 played, because I guess you want to just maybe defend this pawn. I guess g5 is super strong. Plays it. g5 on the board. If you go knight h5, the problem is that bishop d1 would attack it. So knight g8 played. That's a passive place to go back. And is Divya going even further ahead? f5 on the board. She wants to go even f6. Checkmate this black king. And Stalmach rightly stops the pawn with f6. Let's see how Divya continues here, because yes, her attack is very strong, but there's no finishing stroke, so she goes queen g2. Now there are two attacks on the d5 square. You need to defend it, and Richard plays his knight to e7. Also trying to put some pressure here, defending his g6 pawn. I love this move by Divya Deshmukh. What an amazing move, rook f2. Because with that, she is simply bringing her final piece into the attack, rook f1. So opponent takes fg5. Divya chops off the pawn, queen takes g5. Attacking the knight on e7. And Richard plays rook f6. Rook played to f1, a very powerful move here. Also possible was this fg6 idea. And after hg6, there is this very cool move, knight e4. You can't take because the queen is hanging. Anyway, Divya doubles. You also double here. And now she goes h4. Very, very good move. You cannot win material here with knight f5, because after bishop f5, rook f5, rook f5, rook f5, this is just winning because the pawn is pinned. So queen b6 played here by Stalmach. He goes back. And is Divya going even further ahead? No, she goes bishop b1, defending the b2 pawn. I am actually very amazed to see how Divya is switching between attacking chess and also keeping her position guarded. Queen c6 played. And with all the pieces in the attack, it's time to bring one more, knight e2. The only problem that Divya can face here is that she has 2 minutes 26 seconds. King h8 played by her opponent. 24:49 rated. Richard Stalmach trying to keep this position under control. Knight takes on g6. And now this problematic stuff where the g file has opened up. The queen is there. She pushes h5. The pressure mounts here. Knight e7, and she takes on g6, f6 here. Rook takes on f6. Let's see how Divya continues here. You don't want to trade the final rook, so knight f4 is the best move. Now with pressure down here on g6, also controlling the e6 square. Queen d6 played. and she goes rook f2. She wants to play her rook to g2 and just get in here to mate on g7 square. And Stalmach comes back. He wants to play rook to g8 and simply checkmate. I mean, win the queen there. But rook g2 played. And now, will Richard Stalmach play rook g8? Yes, no, he plays queen f6. Maybe there is knight takes d5 hanging. Yeah, she plays knight takes d5. But isn't queen f1 coming in to create some kind of counterplay? She does play king h2 now. You have won a pawn here. Rook g8 played. And this is what Divya had calculated. Bishop g6. Simply love this move. If h takes g6, there is e7 hanging. So knight takes d5 played. The complications are huge. You have to take queen takes d5 and knight f6 played, because if you take on g6, the d7 knight is hanging. So knight f6 attacking the queen, also maybe coming closer to the white king. Well, queen f5 would be a very strong move. Queen e5 does not help because of h takes g6. So queen f5 played. And yeah, there's no time to take the bishop. The queen is hanging. Takes the queen, bishop takes, and materially black is a pawn down, but that pawn he will recover because the h5 pawn and the e3 pawn are under attack. So rook g3 played. And with this 40th move reached for Divya, knight h5, she gets 30 extra minutes. The downside of all of this is that Divya hasn't gotten any material in the position. But the super upside is that her central pawns on e3 and d4 are just incredibly strong. Knight goes back to f6. And king g2. You can see how the bishop attacks with the rook. The rook defends the pawn. The king is coming in to sort of start moving the central pawns. Rook e7 played. It's time to go king f3 now. Move the king in. Yes, Stalmach gets his position under lot of pressure now. Rook c7 played by him, maybe to create some counterplay with c3. King to f4. And goes knight d5. Well, if he had played c3 here, then after pawn takes, rook takes, there is king e5 attacking the knight, and then rook takes h7. So king f4, knight d5 check, king e5, and he goes knight b6. Oh my god, this is taking the knight away from the thick of actions. e4, look at how Divya calmly is playing here. She stops also the move c3. She's just moving ahead with d5, d4. Knight a4 played. Do you have to worry about losing that pawn? Maybe not. d5 played by Divya Deshmukh. She is going d6 next. Rook e7 gives a check. And king comes back to d4. So everything under control. The d pawn is ready to roll. I wouldn't be surprised if Stalmach resigns at any point. b5 played. And now just push the pawn to d6. She pushes it. The rook has to move. And now it's time to push even further. d7. And before you know it, the game is already over. D8 queen coming in. If the rook goes back, h7 is hanging. Resignation there. Divya Deshmukh scores a very, very important win in this tournament. She is got off to a win in round 2, and this win can do her confidence a world of good. She had a tough tournament at the Tata Steel Challengers. Now she's taken up another challenge to herself at the Prague Challengers, and I think each and every game that she plays is surely going to make her a stronger chess player. Here you can see her arranging the pieces, but it's very clear that she is now going to be a different player in the next 7 rounds of the tournament. But this game that she played, what control she showed in attack, in endgame, in all the calculations she made. Kudos to Divya for a brilliant game.